Hi y'all, good morning and welcome back to the garden. I'm going to be doing some fall cleanup today and I'm going to be taking you along with that process. Most of it's going to be some annuals. I'm not doing all annuals and it's hurting me just to do the annuals that I'm doing now, but some of those are things that were damaged by the storm. But we also are getting lows in the 40s next week, the last time I looked at the weather. And so we have at most 2 to 3 weeks until our first frost. Last year our frost was the day before Halloween or Halloween morning, and so I think we may get it a little earlier this year just because the weather has been wacko. Before we begin, I wanted to ask you if you would go vote for my container arrangement on Crescent Gardens Fall Container Project. I'm going to show you some pictures of the container right now. I really love it. We partnered with Suntory Flowers to try out these new straw flowers that they're releasing, and the straw flowers are much larger and they make perfect like dried arrangements too, so you can clip on them. So if you would, I'll put the link below in the description and in the comments. Head over there and vote for my arrangement. The winner gets another Crescent Garden container and I'll be able to plant that up next year. I'm going to show you a few things I got done this week, which wasn't a whole lot. I didn't do a whole lot in the evenings. It's got where the sun's going down really quickly after work. But I got out here Sunday between rain showers. It did rain through Tuesday too, so I didn't get a whole lot done. But between rain showers, I did get the Bracken's Brown Beauty Magnolia planted and the Scarlet Fire Dogwood. So let's take a look. So there's some weeds in this bed too, but that's not going to be much of a focus today. I may start some of that tomorrow, but this is what the Bracken's Brown Beauty Magnolia looks like. I really like how much weight it's added to this space. And I think the evergreen interest is going to be really nice too. A lot of my perennials are looking pretty rough too. That's another project I'm going to save till later. I'm getting a bunch of proven winners perennials in from Walter's Gardens this coming week. And so I don't want to prune these perennials up yet because these are more likely closer to their full size. And I want to be able to space the other perennials before I do any cleaning up. But once I get everything planted in, I'm coming through and doing a drastic cleanup. After the rain, we had 4 full days of rain. These catmints, some of them kind of bit the dust. I don't know if that's temporary, and there must have been a fungus or disease in there. One had already started from the rain we had a month or more ago that was really bad, but this one didn't look very bad until the rain. So I will probably clean that one up, and I don't know if it made it. I haven't seen, there's a little bit of green in here, and it may push perfectly fine growth next year, but it was just very weird because there's no drip in this location or anything. It's solid. There's a tube right here. There's a solid tube that goes over here and begins watering these annuals. So it must be a patch of clay, or it's just holding a bunch of water and not drying out well, and those catmints did not like it. But this is chartreuse on the loose, looking a little weary from a long summer. Same thing with all of these salvias though. I never cut any of them back because I wanted them to grow and get as much root development as possible this year and photosynthesize. And since I didn't, they're really floppy and they need a good cut back. You can see they've started to reflush in the center there, which is nice, but I'll come back and clean all of this excess up in another week or so. So the Scarlet Fire Dogwood got planted right here, and then I'm going to come through today and pull out all of these verbena. This is, I think it's called Royal Blue or something similar to that. They bloomed really good and then they stopped. I think lack of nutrition in this area because all of these hydrangeas had also had a problem, but they're doing amazing now. So I'm going to pull this up and that'll give me some more space to plant things this fall, either some perennials or shrubs, or plant some things in the spring. I'm liking how this is looking much more now that I put the Scarlet Dogwood in there, Scarlet Fire, because now I can place things around it that'll look good. We'll see how big these get next year. These are the polar green elephant ears. They are perennial here. They grow by rhizome and spread by rhizome, and it says they can get 3 to 4 foot tall. They did not this year, their first year, but I'll be interested to see them next year to see if they actually do that because they are in pretty good sun here. I did last night or the night before come through and prune up my roses and string them up the trellis. So we may get to the top of the trellis after all based on how fast this variety is growing. This variety is 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲, Rise Up 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 by Proven Winners. And I noticed that some of the grasses are standing up a little better too. This one over here, I did take my leaf blower and try and stand it up a little better. They were completely fallen over from the high winds, but this one's about to come out anyway in a couple weeks. All of them will, really, because I don't want them hanging around over winter and being a mess to clean up in the spring, since they're just annuals anyway. These are purple fountain grasses. I'm going to show you where I planted the trees that I removed, the Venus dogwood and the, I think it's called stellar pink variegated dogwood. There's also some things I just need to move, including peonies that I have on the south side of the house that were there when I moved in. Not a great location for them. They're going to be moved to the cut flower garden here behind me. I've got them everywhere, kind of over the property that I need to move. And then I have some sedums that I also want to move. I think they're just autumn joy sedums, and they're going to go in the cut flower garden too for cut flower arrangements. So here's where the Venus dogwood ended up. It's kind of in the middle of this shrub border here, and it will get, you can see, let's turn the camera around a little bit. You can see this is west facing, so there's a tree line here, and it'll get more shade for more of the day in this location than it was getting, I think, and it'll be a little happier. It did burn this year, but it put on a lot of upward growth, not a whole lot of lower root growth, I noticed when I dug it up. So it takes a little while for these to settle in, I think, but you can see it's already forming some buds or something, it looks like, for spring here. But the leaves are a bit toasty after the rough drought we had, even though it was on drip irrigation. It's hard for any tree this size to support itself well, even getting sufficient water when its root system's not very well established. So if you have that happening, don't freak out. It may just take it a few years to get settled in before it stops burning. Dogwoods are oftentimes understory trees anyway, so they like a little more shade than some larger shade trees do. I haven't started trellising the roses yet. That's a project where I'll have to come out here with a laser level to make sure the strings are all level across. I need to come through here and just at least mark it, but that would probably be something I should do in the evening as the sun's setting. So that might be something I do on a weekday, is pre-mark it, and then I can come through and drill all the holes and insert all the eye hooks and then the line. That might be the easiest process to follow here. Still thinking about it, but I need to get these pruned up or trained up pretty quickly because they're growing really wild. All right, here's where I stuck the variegated dogwood. It is also pretty toasty, and I left the mulch a little wild as a reminder for me that I need to come by and put drip irrigation on it. It's not a huge deal right now in the fall because we're already so cool this time of year, so getting drip on things isn't as a priority. I can do that all in an afternoon, and I've got several things that I planted this fall that don't have drip on them yet, but we just had a really soaking rainfall, and the cooler temperatures allow me to get by with that. So this is where it will grow on next year. I'm hoping it does a little better right here with not so much sun exposure. All right, I'm gonna grab some tools, and then we're gonna get to pulling out annuals, mostly stuff from containers. I may try and pull out the grasses and potato vine from my crescent garden containers today. I know that's gonna be a big chore, so we'll see if I get to it. All right, we're gonna start with these containers. I'm gonna pull the begonias out of them and then prune up these spiral boxwoods. I did have some death at the bottom of this boxwood before all of these begonias grew up in the spring. And I never got to pruning them this year, so they're getting a little bit out of shape, so I'm going to try and prune them up just a little bit for fall. I may need to come in and add a little bit of more soil to the bottom. I'm not sure if I'll need to do that or not, but we'll take a look. It really pains me to pull these out because they looked so stunning, but the storm really did them in, and the Dichondra Silver Falls underneath is really beautiful. But it won't be but a couple more weeks anyway. Look at this long boxwood offshoot here. It's funny. I'm going to go get actual pruning snips for this. So these are Steel Precision pruners here. I really like these, picked them up locally at a steel dealer. I like them because they're a solid piece of metal with these comfort plastic things. And then of course the blades can be sharpened as needed. Haven't used them a whole lot, but I use them often to prune boxwoods or my yews. So we're gonna see how good of a job I can do with these spiral topiaries. Oh, buy a spiral topiary, Matthew. It'll be so cute. You'll be able to take care of it super easily. Said no one ever. Ugh, baloney. So I'm probably going to have Dichondra silver falls growing back right here next year. I'm going to try and pull it up on the ground. I have had it seed itself before. I don't mind, really beautiful, but I'm going to try and get up as much as I can just to clean up. This is lemongrass. I planted it here to kind of hide that 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 irrigation, and it didn't get quite as big as I wanted it to. And I don't really love it in the landscape. I thought I would. The green grass makes it more look like a weed than me. It does smell really good though. So this is about all of the Dichondra I'm going to be able to get up. So I probably will be having it come back next year, but that's okay. Now these hydrangeas down here are a wee bit innocent. You can see the tag down here still. When I planted these, I didn't realize that they were an improved version on the Proven Winners City Line series, which is what I've read. So the City Line series were bred to be florist hydrangeas, so to grow and cut on for arrangements. Now what that means is the City Line series wasn't necessarily bred to rebloom really well, and so I don't know that these are going to work well here next year. I'm going to leave them in the ground since they're already here. And if I don't get any rebloom off of them, I may give these to my mom or something, so they'll be more likely to rebloom in a southern location or bloom in a southern location where there's not so much bad winters. But I also hadn't pruned on them. It may have encouraged a little rebloom, but given where their genetics come from, I don't think the intent of these were to rebloom. Typically, you'll see on these tags that it'll say reblooming hydrangea is what a lot of companies like to use now instead of just big leaf. And it does not say that on this tag. And as much as it pains me, I'm going to go ahead and start pulling out some of these brown begonias today too, because I might end up planting some of those perennials that I get here. And I didn't order, I'm not sure that I ordered any of these for next year because I have so much other stuff coming. I do like them though, so I'll probably repeat them in the future. Just trying to still work out these spaces, how I want them to look from year to year. And it will never be the same from year to year, but as you know, the last couple years has been my first foray into trying lots of different annuals. And I want to try new stuff and see what works best for my garden. So when you're pruning big leaf hydrangeas, regardless of whether this one will rebloom or not, this one does have a bloom on it. Oh, and a snail. This, you want to prune right below the bloom. So there's the bloom, and then right below it, there's a couple leaves. You want to go down to the next set of leaves and just snip it off. This will encourage rebloom if it is going to rebloom. I'm excited to see, this one's putting on a bud too, so maybe these will rebloom a little bit for me. We'll have to see. They're just not, maybe not as prolific as some of the other in the series. So keep an eye on this over the next couple weeks. I don't know that we'll have fair enough weather for the next few weeks for it to get to that rebloom stage. So, I don't know about you, but I mention this all the time. I have a really hard time putting things in the garden or picturing putting things in the garden when there are other things in its space. And so that's one reason I'm cleaning out annuals. As I mentioned, it pains me to do it when we still have a few weeks and to do it before the first frosts actually came, but there's some shrubs that I need to plant here and the annuals are in the way. So I've got to be able to get them out and have a clean slate to see what I can plant here and the spacing for it. I've got some of the Midnight Sun 𝗟𝗂𝗲, which is the red, green, kind of almost blue, purpley leafed 𝗟𝗟𝗲. I've got several of them that stay a little more compact. I might spread throughout here. I think I've got like 5 or 6 of them. I don't think they will all fit right here, but I'm going to go through and remove all of these bedding begonias now, just so I can get an idea of what this space is going to look like with all of that stuff gone. And I would recommend you do the same. I know it's hard, but sometimes we just have to do it. Now, some people will come through and just cut their annuals off at the ground and let the roots kind of just decay in the ground. That's great if you don't have neck problems like I do. I just can't stay crouched down that long. So just pulling them out helps a little bit with that. And they come out relatively easily. You can see there's not much root system on these actually from when they were planted in spring. But this also gives me ideas of where there are gaps for planting next year, and give me an idea of putting something cheap in the space to see how it would grow before I dedicated multiple perennials or shrubs to the space. All right, I don't know that I'm growing verbena in the ground again at this garden. One thing about annuals that I'm not great at is regularly fertilizing. If I could come up with a injection system to automatically fertilize stuff for me, they would do better. So these grew really great, but they did not bloom well after their first flush. And now I didn't realize they spread along the ground, so now I've got a mess. These put on some roots. All right, I had to stop and get a snacky snack, mid-morning snacky snack. I put on my Farmer's Defense sleeves, which I love these. I use them primarily for sun protection, but if I'm doing cleanup, I had to put them on because the grasses that I was cleaning up, the lemongrass specifically, was making my skin super itchy and I was getting irritation on it. So I got a lemongrass that was behind this tree pulled up. I'm not going to replant anything there next year, I think, unless it's maybe a ground cover. So I want this structure of this tree to shine nicely. I cleaned up the artist blue ageratum that was along the sidewalk here. I need to come through with a leaf blower and clean up this dirt. I am not cleaning up my lavender this fall. I've had lavender for 4 or 5 years. You know, I had 2 hedges of it along the driveway at the last house. I find that if I clean it up and prune it back in the fall, it dies, or I have some loss and there's more damage to it. So I tested this out at the last garden. I've typically and historically cleaned it up in the spring, right when it starts leafing out. The last winter that I was at the house, I cut it back in fall just because it tended to trap a lot of leaves, and then I lost an entire plant over winter. So keeping it a little protected with its upper growth and foliage is important in our Southwest Ohio zone. So this will be left as is and to be cleaned up in the spring. Here's my container, by the way. It's looking a little rough from all the rain we had because I shot all those pictures before, but I love the sound that these straw flowers make. These need to be clipped off so there can be some new ones coming here, but this asparagus fern's loving life, and I think it's real cute. All right, so we're gonna go clean out the crescent garden containers. Now, these look a little rough. I have not watered them since the beginning of September. I watered them one last time when I came back from Garden because they were looking a little rough from the drought and the extreme heat that we had that entire week. And then I just stopped because I figured these might be a little difficult to clean out. So what I wanted to do was let the containers completely dry up, the soil to become hydrophobic, and pull away from the side of the container, which I would recommend you do if you're taking all of your container soil out. This had grasses in it. It had a purple fountain grass, sweet potato vine, and Supertunia Vista bubblegum. I planted them in the middle of May, and all three of those things are super vigorous and have an extensive root system. So we're gonna pull the plug, literally, from the Crescent Garden True Drop containers, let the water drain out, which there's not much water in it now as it is, because it's completely dried up this month. And then I'm gonna pull them out and see how easily those pull out. All right, those pulled out really easily. And look at these tubers. This is from the sweet potato vine. Some sweet potato vines actually produce like tubers, which is interesting, but you can see the column of soil there. There's not much soil left. There's mostly roots. So I'm gonna let these True Drop containers completely dry out. Then they need to be cleaned up, washed up, and I'm gonna store these in the barn. These are staying out over winter, but I gotta pull the plug on them to make sure it drains well, because there is a topiary in them. So these are gonna stay out over winter. I'm just gonna put these up and out of the way during winter in the barn. And then I need to find somewhere to put this container. I've considered putting it up front. Right here's not good because it's in the middle of the pool area without drip irrigation, and so I didn't plant anything in this. Everything that's in it that is now toast from the drought was seeded Supertunias and one of the verbenas, which is still holding on, the pink cashmere from testing last year. So this is going to get moved though, maybe up front in the garden bed where it can have active irrigation, unless I find somewhere else to stick it before then. All right, I'm going to get these big root balls loaded up into my gorilla cart and disposed of. Thank y'all for joining me at the beginning of this fall clean out. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're getting started in your garden, especially if you're up here in the Midwest or the Northeast where it's cooling down a little bit. Some of you guys in the South might have a little more time left, but we're starting to wrap it up here. Thank y'all for joining me, and remember, be a light. Take care. Bye.